All right, here
Hello.
we are.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you doing?
You can't say good morning because it's not morning anymore.
Oh my gosh, no.
And it's
I'm
not
I'm still a little
afternoon
bit on
either.
East Coast time.
I don't know what you say
It's
at
just
noon time.
noon. Just
Hello,
good
noon.
noon. That's it.
How are you? Jason, you've been like traveling the world.
Oh, world, not quite. Just the East Coast. I went up to. I left after Climate Week here in Houston to
Mhm.
check out New York Climate Week. It was my first time going. Did not know what to expect. I think I did it half wrong. But it was very different from how we do things in Houston. And then I stopped by Boston for AI Week. So to talk a little bit about Climate Week in New York, the like style is very New York, and by what I mean by that is everything you join has a wait list. It is all free, but unless they think you're cool enough, you don't get into the event. And like at least for me, they release the wait list like the weekend before and or the day before. And I think it's very different from Houston, where you either got to pay for the Energytech Venture Forum or you got to pay for Tech Nexus, but all are welcome. And then obviously a lot of people have their kind of free events throughout. But I think the whole wait list dynamic is just very New York to me. It's like who's cool, who's actually coming.
Yeah. Huh.
It was funny. Yeah.
And so everything is free. Like there are no, how we have our anchor events. I mean, the way I think about Climate Week is just way more events than what we have here, right? And it's just everyone's kind of throwing their own events. But tell me about it.
Yeah.
You find,
The
yeah.
so there are like most of the events are small. So the average event was probably 20 to 70 people. Really focused gatherings all across the city. Hot tip: sometimes Google Maps gets things wrong, and it's like you had to actually look at the address to figure out where you're supposed to be going. But the reality is there are just not that many big venues in New York. So a lot of things were in a law firm or they were in a WeWork, and so they could only get so large. And that kind of changed the way people think about things. There were two larger events. One was an after party that was hosted by Floor. Two that I went to, I should say. And that one ended up being nice and large, but that was kind of like a good after party. Um, and the other one was at I think New Labs out in Brooklyn. But then you have to like go out to Brooklyn, and that's like an hour each way. And that was a nice big facility, lots of people, a good show, and they had actually a couple of events there because that was one of the few venues that actually got large enough to do like 1,000 people plus. And it's I think that's a dynamic where people aren't used to traveling, like because you literally got to take the metro there or the subway to get out there. Whereas here in Houston, everyone's used to driving anyways, right? And
Hmm.
you're used to
Hmm.
parking. And we just got really used to paying $50 to Uber across town, which is not something I would recommend to anybody. But that's just kind of the reality of being in New York. Is a lot of the big stuff was actually done in Manhattan.
Hmm. Were there any good events that you went to?
Yeah, I think there were like what's nice about the small settings and about the waitlist nature of things was I did find every time I was in a room, it was with a good quality or selection of folks, both in the investor side and the startup side. There was, and everyone was kind of targeted. They were there for a reason. I found at any given event, sometimes it was maybe like 10 or 15% overlap of people. Whereas in Houston, I feel like sometimes you go from event to event, it's like half the audience is the same group.
Hmm.
And so there was that kind of benefit where you could kind of pick and choose and find a topic area to go deep on, and where you got some value because it's more about like who's on the edge of your network that you're adding to it that drives things for you. I will say I did end up at one event that was targeted at investors and founders, and I ended up being in an apartment complex. It was interesting. It was an interesting crowd. I felt like half the people there were like single people in New York, and it was definitely a boys' side of the room and a girls' side of the room. And I did not expect I was in the right place. I think I misread the description or something. But some of it is just like who gets drawn and who gets selected, right? And it's a reminder that people live in the city, and for some people, Climate Week is just the thing you go out to.
Hmm.
Um, During the same week, there was like an Italian like food festival going on, so there
Hmm.
was like you know I don't know how to describe it. It's like you eat pasta. They would like make the pasta in like a big Parmesan like
Mm.
thing and would scrape it out, and it's like so tasty. But that's New York for you. There's always some random stuff going on, and sometimes it's just a lifestyle to go from week to
Yeah.
week.
Oh,
So
yeah, no.
exactly.
No, I'm just like, yeah, I want to be there. But no, okay, interesting. To know like how differently it's done there. And do you feel like there was a lot of people there? Because I mean, me, I've never been to Climate Week, but I always feel like everyone I know is going there. Like half of Houston's there.
Yeah,
Everyone I talk to in Europe is there.
it's hard to say there's a lot of people in the sense that like New York's already like a whatever 14 million person city, so it's not like the city feels more full. Like when you have OTC here in Houston, Houston feels full,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And everyone downtown is kind of associated with that. And same with Zero Week, it just kind of spills out and around. Obviously, Climate Week in New York revolves around like the UN big general meeting as well, and so there are a lot of people there for that who are not necessarily climate specific. And I wouldn't say like the city felt like it was any different than it normally is, because like Times
Mhm.
Square is always Times Square.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Um,
always tourists there, right? Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So like, but in terms of answering your question, yeah, lots of people coming from across the country. Felt
Mhm.
like there were a lot of Houstonians. I saw some Houstonians I didn't even get to see in Houston,
Mhm.
and a good groups of people coming out of Canada. Yes, Canadians still travel to the U.S., so that was good. And then folks from other places. I would say there was a couple from California, but definitely a lot of good East Coast representation.
Hmm.
So all in all, I think it is a lot of folks coming together, and even the startups at the various showcases were being sourced from beyond New York.
Okay. And you mentioned like because you were also there thinking about our new product Mentat and
Mm-mm.
AI and what people are everyone's investing in AI these days. What did you find? Because you were afterwards, you went to Boston,
Yeah,
AI week. The difference between New York and Boston and the focus there.
it's funny. Like there's always this wave of things that happen when people post about like, oh, I did this week and this is what I learned. And like half the discussion at AI was data centers. We've been talking about data centers here in Houston for like a year. I'm kind of over it. Like we already
Mhm.
know the things. We already know how these projects get developed. We already know it's going to cause a lot of demand on the grid. What's new here, right? And it in some ways you got to wonder if in New York it's just people playing a little catch up, that these are big challenges in demand, or that's just the one time people get together and it's just kind of the long tail on the conversation. But like, there's nothing new here. Like I think I already saw Project Stargate already got their first data center built. Like we know this is a challenge, and we know people are going to build more power for it. So it was interesting to me that across Climate Week, the entire discussion was about servicing demand and less about what I think is more interesting is when people talk about is AI changing the way we work. No one's talking about how AI changes energy,
Mhm.
how it changes the way we do things, and maybe it's because in energy we've been dealing with process automation for a long time. We've had a whole wave of digitization that you were part of, um, and it feels like all the hard problems have been tackled, maybe. But I did get to see a fun demo from a company, actually out of not a U.S. company. Of all the things, the good AI companies were not in the U.S., not in New York. They were taking kind of, I think it was like sustainability plans against like Paris, and they had an agent that would review existing plans, rank them, and provide opportunities for improvement for an organization using both public data and your inputted plan. And so it was interesting to see some people trying to tackle, how do you actually pursue your SDG goals, and how does your plan stack up against other best practices? And what they had done is they built their own repository and training documents to take all their internal domain knowledge as a sustainability advisory group, and provide this agent that could turn around and provide recommendations. And for a project that might take 2 to 4 weeks from a consulting firm, the agent was able to get 90% of the way there in 20 minutes live on screen. And so, well, the reason I'm bringing up this anecdote is it's unclear to me that, well, it's clear to me that there's this domain knowledge that's going to get transformed, and where you're going to be able to bring these agentic tools to work to accelerate evaluation. And it's unclear to me that our industry is looking beyond like load demand and thinking, okay, what are the things we can do to continue to drive efficiency in our space? And how do you push that down into organizations who couldn't afford maybe the process automation from before? and you think about a industry that is so thin on people, you almost need this next generation of automation. And I think I don't know if it's still true, but I think I was reading somewhere that the energy industry does something like $4 or $5 million in revenue per head. And to contrast that by Amazon, I think Amazon's like $120,000 per head. So just 50 orders of magnitude more of like revenue efficiency, if that were the only metric for like people kind of managing things, and that trend's only going to continue. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get through this and this next level of automation, you realize, okay, the energy industry is going to be one that's $20 million per head, right? Like what's that 4 or 5 times kind of productivity efficiency that happens? And I'm just not seeing a lot of conversation on that. And it's curious to me if it's just like the story of like the energy industry being slow to adopt, or if it's actually because we've already tackled a lot of the hard problems. I don't know, but I thought I would see more of that. That was in New York at least. And then we could talk about Boston AI Week if we're ready to transition, but I'm happy to continue talking about New York.
Yeah, no, let's talk about Boston AI Week. Yeah, how is that?
So the new thing that people are talking about and this is the difference between Boston and New York. New York is very much on the like, let's talk about energy and like how this affects the macro economy. In Boston, it was like, how do we get the robots to talk to each other? Which was the funniest thing, which is like not that far away. And so my first day there's these 2 competing standards that are discussed. If you imagine an agent or an AI is like a little program and it goes out and it has objectives. The way some of the early agents are working today is you can give them tools and they'll go off and use those tools. And so maybe over the weekend, you've used ChatGPT and you ask it to search the internet. That's like a little agentic thing. It's go get me some information. Let's use a tool to search the internet and pull back some information. And that was probably the earliest use case of an agent. The next use case is I think I saw OpenAI released a version where you can like buy stuff on IKEA or Etsy through your ChatGPT, and it will do that now. And like that's the future kind of coming. But it makes you realize, it's just a program engaging with another program, and that program just happens to be a store. But there will be a future where you have language model based programs talking to language model based programs. All right, and so that's what they mean by this. Like they start talking about like worlds of agents or ecosystems of agents, and the interesting or challenging problem today is how do you trust the agents are like interacting in a way that's like truthy, as some would say, and how do you know that you should be like what information you should be sharing. And so there's this whole like technical discussion, very technical, like we did this in the internet. This is like what passwords do, and this is what certification does, and this is how you know when you type in a website URL how you get to the right website. Well, there's almost that same discussion going on of, okay, we have all these things that are kind of in the open wide network. How do we know that we're talking to the right person, the right agent, and that they're trustworthy? And just like with the website, like if you go to a website that's bad, you get this little flag that's like, don't go here. This is a bad website, right? Like there's almost that same question of how do you create a trust factor across all these little robots talking to each other.
Right.
And so the first question was like, how do they talk to each other, and how do you know that they're not lying to each other? But then second, if you imagine you're using ChatGPT to buy stuff on Etsy, you're transferring money. Like you are spending money. And it's not too far in the future to think as these robots talk to each other, they're also exchanging money for knowledge or money and value. There's a value exchange going on. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Go ahead.
Like the Chinese app WeChat, right? Like
like social currency.
There, like and I don't know how much like AI they have embedded in it, agentic AI, but I bet they do, because I've never used it. But from what I know is like everyone just needs that one app, and you can do everything in it. You can chat to people, you can buy whatever you want. Everything is on there.
Everything,
is on there. If the ChatGPT starts doing that too, because right now we're just using it as a knowledge base
for us.
Like these LLMs, they enhance like individual productivity, but now it's about systems productivity by actually using it in the industrial space. right?
Yeah, and I think that kind of reflects the very like academic nature of a city like Boston is like they're really thinking about infrastructure and how do you scale infrastructure
Mhm.
and like think about these problems of like what if at that next stage in a way
Right.
that like we're not even ready to have a conversation about here in
No.
Texas. And it was very eye-opening because it was literally like people who make the internet work talking about how do we make this next
Yeah.
layer
Yeah.
work and like
Mm.
they were talking about I don't know, stuff I don't even want to go into. It's like super technical, but like it was very encouraging that these technical people were thinking deeply about how you create trust in an ecosystem where it's almost not deterministic. And I think that's what's interesting about language models and agents is it's not like you put an input into a program and you always get 1+1 = 2. Anyone who's worked with ChatGPT knows sometimes it either hallucinates or it gets lost
Yeah.
and it's non-deterministic is
Right.
kind of the
Exactly.
concern,
And I think that's what
right?
sometimes people forget because, and I posted about this because I'm reading this book called Co-Intelligence, and like what I'm learning is hallucination is like what ChatGPT does. Like it's designed to do that because it's a predictive analytical
Mhm.
model. It's not a logical model in the same sense. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what's the most likely word that I need to put here that will answer your prompt? And it also depends on like how you've designed that model, or if that
Mhm.
agentic AI system or whatever it might be, like what are its goals? And a lot of the LLMs that we're using, their goal is like to give you a satisfying answer, not necessarily to give you the most accurate answer. Like
Yes. Yeah.
that might be a secondary goal, but it's like, how do I make this person happy? That's like the top goal. And then then they might give you false information because it wants to just make sure it gives you something.
Yeah. And you're happy with the false information, to be honest. So mission accomplished,
Yeah,
right?
mission accomplished, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's not like before. I used to, we used to talk about prompt engineering and how you ask the right things, but I think now it's about like actually verifying what it's
Yeah.
giving you, because people are getting more. The more you use it, the more skill you get at giving it the right prompts. But then also making sure that like I feel like I need to be more detailed oriented with the responses it gives me, and like I don't have a mind that's like wants to go into the details, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
that's where I think the skill now lies, is like people really fact checking and making sure. And it's like our critical thinking that comes in, and are we questioning it enough? Like
Mhm.
I took our notes from I know we are going kind of a little bit on a tangent, but I took our notes from our customer discovery meeting, and I told it, give me the output, like what's the summary, what are the key takeaways, and it was like just saying yeah. And then I asked it like, does it validate our hypothesis? And it was just like very positive. And then I
It's
was
like, of
like,
course.
well, you're just saying that to make me happy. So I was like, can
Yeah.
you give me any red flags? Like, what are the risks here? Like, am I jumping too much into
Mhm.
conclusion? And so it was good to do that and have it give me the negatives, instead of just like further like validating
Mhm. Yeah. Your
everything.
confirmation bias is
Mhm.
just, yeah, is only
Yeah.
emphasizing that. So,
No, very
um,
interesting.
yeah.
I do feel that we lack that kind of more advanced conversation around AI here in the Houston. And like, I mean, during Climate Week,
Mhm.
we had some AI related events, and I felt like there's a lot of opportunity here for us to start doing more events and like start having conversations, and maybe bring in experts, not
Mhm.
only from Houston but outside of Houston, to talk about the future,
Yeah.
especially in industrial systems.
And
Yeah. Hmm.
and so in some ways, if the Boston ecosystem is 10 times, bigger or further ahead, whatever the metric would be, than Houston. It's like really around the technical conversation, which I thought was very interesting around the the language models. But the consensus there was they felt they were behind even San Francisco by an order of magnitude, which is maybe that's hype, but it's just funny how
Yeah.
every industry has its different strengths. And I think where we are here in Houston, with our very technical industrial buyer, the question is how do we take some of this technology and bring it forward so it creates value here, right?
Yeah.
And it's we're in the right place to figure that out.
Yeah. And then on that point, we are starting our AI, hopefully like monthly or quarterly meetups. So keep an eye
Yeah,
out for that. We'll be announcing that shortly.
good. And then it's good to be back, and it's the best time to be back in Houston, so I'm actually glad to be here. It's like not too hot.
I know
Just
it's not too hot, but it's still hot.
yeah.
Yeah, I know it's like still 90 degrees today, but no, it's good. They say usually it's around Halloween that it turns, so we still got a few more weeks before it gets cold on us. And then in terms of what's coming here in Houston this week, I wanted to talk about an event that we're hosting on Thursday, a breakfast seminar together with our partnership with the city of Edmonton. So they're doing this event because we have recently, United has just launched a direct flight from, I wonder if it's United and Air Canada partnership. I should know this, but there's a direct flight from Edmonton to Houston now. And so as part of that, they're bringing a mission down here. And by mission, I mean, they're bringing like startups. They're bringing like some people from the tourism industry, some people from the energy, logistics and shipping. And we have 9 startups that we'll be hosting at Green Street on Saturday. And so they'll give like a little pitch and introduction about themselves.
Thursday, not Saturday.
What did I say? Saturday, Thursday?
Saturday, Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. They're going to be down here on Thursday on the 9th of October. We'll start with breakfast at 8 a.m. 9 o'clock, around 9 o'clock, we will have a panel. We have Aramco Ventures, we have BP Ventures, we have Eric Rubenstein from New Climate Ventures. We have Jean May. She will be moderating. And so we have a really good panel where we'll be discussing how do we actually scale startups and technologies within energy and climate tech. So I think that'll be interesting. And then after that, we also have a matchmaking session. So we've invited a lot of industry experts to meet with these startups so that they have an opportunity to scale and find business opportunity in Houston. So if you are interested in getting to know some of these startups, you can look on Luma, find out what these companies are, mostly within energy, one within shipping and logistics. There's one on kind of the future of workforce, which should be interesting. So the event is on Luma. You'll find more information there, and it is at Green Street on Thursday.
Good. And then I think we do have a members only event going on this week on Wednesday that's helping our members evaluate if they have product market fit. I'm going to try and get into that one because I need to know. So I'm excited for that. Members only though. So check out your newsletter. You should see it there for details. And then we have a town hall right after the Edmonton thing. And that one's going to be early just because I think the Edmonton event ends, if I remember, at like noon.
Yeah.
And then we're going to spin up our town hall at 1, going to be right at Green Street. We'll kind of discuss what's going on with the Nexus the rest of the year. Hopefully we'll have some news about Jingle Mingle. And we'll also do our regular set of icebreakers. So that'll be fun. I want to hear how everyone in the community has been doing over the last few months. So it'll be good.
Yeah. And then we have a DTL event on October 17th. And there, again, the topic is AI because that's what everyone's talking about. And that's, by popular demand, people want to learn more about how they could apply AI. What do they need to know in terms of, not only increasing their own productivity, but thinking about their teams and the work environment, because it is now not just a nice to have, but if you want to come ahead, all strategies from all big corporates or small businesses are asking people to, see how they could incorporate AI into whatever they're doing and automate their workflows, etc. So not just using LLMs, but what's the next step after that? So that should be interesting. So join for that again. All this information you can find on Luma. And if you're not already on our newsletter, which we send out every week, you should also sign up through our website.
Good. Well.
And then on other news, we also discussed, Jason, that, we need to kind of rethink our format for the Thunderwatch. So I think we're going to pause it after today. And think about how we want to relaunch it in the coming weeks and what we should focus on. So any feedback, those of you who are listening, please do let us know.
Yeah, we have a full slate of additional new content coming out, and it's like we got to make room somewhere in the schedule.
Mm.
So I'm excited for what we're doing in the next half of the or next 4 or 5 months, and I think we're going to rethink how we get the news out. So it'll be good. All right.
Okay. I think that should be all for today. I was trying to log in on the LinkedIn Live here, but hopefully we're going through to people. But
we're alive. We're alive.
But,
we are.
Okay. Well, we'll see you not next week, but you'll hear from
We'll
us
see you
on
around.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right.
Bye.